I'm not easily impressed by hotel rooms anymore. After traveling for years and staying everywhere from capsule pods to luxury suites, I thought I'd seen it all. But then someone sent me a photo, just a single photo of something that didn't even look real. A hotel room made entirely of glass. Walls of glass. A ceiling of glass. Even the bathroom, apparently, was mostly glass. And my brain immediately went, okay, that's either the coolest thing ever invented or the worst idea ever created. Naturally, I booked it. The trip out here already felt like I was entering another world. The hotel is hidden about an hour outside the city, tucked in the middle of a protected forest area. No skyscrapers. No noise. Just nature and absolute quiet. When I finally reached the entrance, there was no giant sign, no dramatic gate, just a small wooden marker and a narrow road that almost convinced me I was in the wrong place. But then the trees opened up and the view made my jaw actually drop. Sparkling cubes of glass scattered through the landscape, like someone had dropped a bunch of giant crystal dice onto the earth. The staff guided me through the check-in process. And honestly, I was only half listening because I was too busy trying to understand how this place even exists. Each room looks like it's floating, because the support beams are hidden at the corners under these black mirrored panels. If you stand in the right spot, it genuinely looks like a transparent box suspended above the ground. I asked the receptionist, "Do people walk into the walls?" She laughed and said, "All the time." Apparently, they hand out microfiber cloths specifically for wiping forehead prints off the glass. When we finally approached my room, it was way bigger than I expected. The moment I stepped inside, it felt like entering the world's most luxurious terrarium. The only visible non-glass objects were the furniture and the floor. Everything else was transparent. I could see the treetops, the sky, the reflection of tiny insects crawling along the outside glass, and even the distant mountains. It was insanely beautiful and also terrifying because every direction felt like the edge of a cliff. Even though the structure was solid, the first thing I tried was the bathroom. Because obviously, how do you do that in a glass box? Turns out the shower has smart glass. With a tap on a tiny black button, the entire bathroom suddenly frosts into opaque white, like magic. And immediately I started tapping it on and off, on and off. I swear the staff must have been listening through some secret camera laughing at me because it looked like I was discovering electricity for the first time, once I got a feel for the room. I knew I needed to test the number one question everyone asks: what about privacy? The hotel has a rule: each glass room is positioned so that no other room can see inside yours. They also use camera recognition tech that instantly darkens your glass if someone gets too close. In theory, that sounds perfect. But in reality, my overthinking brain was like, what if a hiker with binoculars walks past? What if a drone flies by? What if an eagle has incredibly judgmental eyes? But after a few minutes of just looking around, the paranoia faded because the view was unreal. Imagine being totally immersed in nature without bugs biting you, without humidity ruining your hair, and without the fear of a bear casually wandering up to your face. I sat on the bed, which, by the way, is one of those overly fluffy beds that you sink into like a marshmallow, and stared out at the sunset. The entire sky reflected through the room so perfectly that when the sun finally dropped below the horizon, it felt like the whole structure sighed into darkness. Then night came. And that's when I understood why this hotel became an online obsession. The moment the lights went off, the entire room transformed into a floating planetarium. The stars weren't just above me, they were all around me, reflected and multiplied by the glass. I've seen beautiful night skies before, but never like this. It was like trying to sleep inside the universe. And because the room is soundproof, everything was silent. No traffic. No voices. Just the occasional whisper of wind brushing against the glass, but sleeping in a glass room sounds a lot easier than it actually is. Every time a bird flew by, its shadow slid across the walls. Every time the moon peeked from behind a cloud, the room dimly shimmered. At one point, around 3 a.m., I heard a thump. A loud one. I sat up, heart pounding like I was in a horror movie. And then I realized it was a raccoon, staring at me from the other side of the glass. I don't know why, but seeing a raccoon that close in the middle of the night when you're half asleep feels like being confronted by a small furry god. We locked eyes for a full 10 seconds before it waddled off. I'm pretty sure it judged me. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring in from every angle, and because everything was transparent, there was nowhere to hide from it. It was like waking up inside a diamond. Breakfast was delivered in a basket via a pulley system, because the staff doesn't want to disturb guests by walking up to the rooms. The basket descended from the trees like a mystical picnic sent by forest fairies. Inside, fresh fruit, warm pastries, coffee, and a note that said, "Hope the raccoon didn't bother you." So, apparently this is a known midnight visitor. After eating, I decided to test something that has exploded on social media, taking drone shots of the room from the outside. Seeing the room from above made it even more surreal. It looked like a perfectly clear crystal cube sitting in the middle of endless green. From certain angles, you can't even see the structure. It just blends into the landscape like someone photoshopped it into real life. Later, I tried the experience the hotel is famous for, the sunrise bath. There's a soaking tub right next to the window, and when you fill it with hot water early in the morning, the steam rises and fogs the glass ceiling just a little. Meanwhile, you watch the sun slowly brighten the world around you. It's unbelievably peaceful, like existing inside a screensaver, designed for relaxation. But the craziest part of this entire stay was something I didn't expect at all. Being surrounded by glass for long enough changes how your brain works. You become hyper-aware of the environment. You start noticing tiny details you usually ignore, like how the wind moves through the trees, or how shadows stretch across the ground, or how clouds shift shape every few minutes. It made everything feel slower in a good way. My phone stayed untouched for hours because I didn't even think to pick it up, of course. I also had to try something dramatic, turning off all the lights at night and playing a horror movie on my laptop. Bad idea. Terrible idea. Watching a scary movie while surrounded by glass and darkness feels like every tree outside is plotting to murder you. I lasted 12 minutes before switching to a cooking show. Eventually, checkout time rolled around and I genuinely didn't want to leave. Not because of the luxury, though that definitely helps, but because the room changes how you feel. It puts you in this peaceful, suspended state where the world looks clearer, quieter, and strangely bigger. Like you're living inside the present moment instead of thinking about what's next. When I packed up and stepped outside, I turned back and saw the room reflecting the morning sky. It looked like a piece of the world had been carved out, polished, and placed gently on the ground. And I remember thinking, this might actually be one of the coolest hotel rooms on the planet. So if you ever get the chance, and if you're not afraid of raccoons with strong personalities, staying in a completely glass hotel room is one of those bucket list experiences you'll never forget. Just be prepared for a raccoon judgment stare at 3 a.m.